Black CEO accused of stealing his own car 10 minutes later. He made the police chief hand over his badge. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel is losing traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can help us. It's quick, free, and allows us to continue bringing you great content. Your support means everything. Let's keep this channel growing collectively. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to the story. Step out now. This isn't yours. The officer's voice cracked through the morning air like glass under pressure. A crowd had already gathered, phones up, lenses hungry for tension. In the driver's seat sat a black man in a charcoal suit, calm behind dark lenses, hands resting steady on the wheel of a $200,000 Aston Martin. He didn't move, didn't blink. Only the faint reflection of blue lights danced across his sunglasses. The second officer circled the car, hand on holster. You heard him. Step out. Slowly. Behind them, the dealership signs shimmered in gold letters. ASSTON. Drive. A place where money bought silence and appearance decided value. The man inside, Marcus Reed, said nothing, because he'd heard that tone before. At 16, it was a mall security guard accusing him of loitering. Mayo. At 24, a realtor who asked if he could really afford the house he'd just bought. Now 38, a billionaire CEO. And still, the question came back dressed in the same uniform. Disbelief. But Marcus didn't argue. He adjusted his cufflinks. One hand brushed against the key fob, the same fob that could unlock every vehicle in that showroom, because he owned the entire chain. The taller cop leaned in, peering at the interior. Nice ride. Where'd you get it? Marcus finally looked up. From the factory I helped build? The officer scoffed. Sure you did. A few in the crowd chuckled. Phones trembled with excitement. This was a spectacle now, the illusion of power clashing with the truth still in disguise. Marcus exhaled slowly, almost like a prayer. The air felt heavy, charged. He could see his reflection in the badge, polished, temporary, blind. Sir, step out or we'll remove you, the officer snapped again. Marcus unbuckled, every motion deliberate. He opened the door, stepped out into the sunlight, posture unbroken, presence commanding. The murmurs grew. Someone whispered, "He doesn't look scared." Another replied, "He should be." Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change, and we're glad you're here. Now, back to Marcus. The officer pointed toward the sidewalk. Keys on the hood. Hands where I can see them. Marcus placed the keys down slowly, like setting evidence before a trial. He said quietly, "Be careful with that car." The cop sneered. "Why? It's not yours." Marcus looked him dead in the eye. That's exactly why this moment matters. A silence fell over the street, a silence thick with judgment, history, and the weight of what was about to change. The silence didn't last long. One of the officers spoke into his shoulder mic. Possible vehicle theft, suspect detained. Suspect. The word hit the air like a verdict already signed. Marcus didn't move. The crowd edged closer. Someone whispered, "He looks too calm for a thief." Another answered, "Calm don't mean innocent." That's how bias sounds, soft enough to pass as opinion, sharp enough to cut like fact. The taller cop leaned in. "License and registration," Marcus replied, even-toned. "Inside the glove box." The officer nodded, then pulled the door wider and reached in himself. He fished out a black leather folder, opened it, and froze. The registration bore a bold name, Reed Automotive Group, Inc., but he didn't read it aloud. Instead, he snapped the folder shut and said, "Fake or stolen, we'll find out." Marcus turned his head slightly. "Or you could just read it." "Sir, don't get smart," the cop shot back. Marcus smiled faintly, not from arrogance, but recognition. He'd seen this choreography before. A woman from the crowd called out, "He gave you his papers. What more you need?" The officer ignored her. "Step back, ma'am," another man muttered. "You all gonna regret this." Phones kept filming, each frame a timestamp, each second an archive of disbelief. Marcus looked at his watch. 10:24. He pressed a button on the side of his smartwatch. Subtle, almost invisible. Far away in a glass office overlooking downtown Atlanta, a light on a server rack blinked red. Protocol. 7 activated. Back at the scene, the shorter cop frowned. What was that? Marcus met his gaze. Accountability. It's a new technology. You'll get used to it. The cop scoffed. You threatening me with tech? No, Marcus said calmly. With truth. The sound of approaching sirens echoed down the street. Local backup called in for a misunderstanding that should have lasted 2 minutes, not 20. The dealership manager rushed out, tie crooked, trying to look in charge. Officers, what's happening here? He asked. Caught this man trying to drive off with a new Aston, the taller one replied. The manager squinted. That's strange. The car's already sold. To who? The officer asked. The manager looked at Marcus and said flatly, Not him. Laughter rippled through the crowd. It wasn't humor, it was disbelief hiding in plain sight. Marcus raised an eyebrow. That's an interesting assumption. The manager folded his arms. Do you even know how much this vehicle costs? Marcus stepped closer. Enough to pay your salary. For the next 8 years. A hush fell. Even the officers shifted slightly, uncertain now. Marcus's phone buzzed. He tapped his earpiece. A female voice came through, calm, precise. Mr. Reed, confirmation in progress. Local police dispatch has been alerted that you're on site. Legal and media protocols are live. Marcus's lips barely moved. Thank you, Jordan. The taller cop frowned. Who was that? Marcus turned toward him, his expression unreadable. The part where this stops being a mistake, he said. And just like that, the crowd felt it, the shift. The air no longer belonged to the badge. It belonged to the truth walking toward it. Somewhere inside the showroom, a reporter whispered into her mic. This might be one of those stories people talk about for years. She had no idea how right she was. The backup unit arrived in under 2 minutes, lights flashing, radios hissing. The crowd parted as 2 more officers stepped out, posture hard, eyes scanning for control. To them, Marcus was just another problem to be contained. Sir, hands on the hood, one ordered. Marcus didn't argue. He placed both palms flat on the cool metal, steady, but his tone when he finally spoke could have frozen wind. You're about to detain the registered owner of this entire property. The younger officer paused mid-stride. What? The older one waved it off. Let's verify that first. They didn't notice the showroom manager's hands shaking as he checked his tablet. His system had just locked him out. A message flashed across the screen in bold red. ACCESS revoked, internal audit initiated. Jordan's voice hummed softly through Marcus's earpiece. Protocol 7 is running. Corporate security just logged the entire incident live. Local news already has the feed. Marcus didn't move. Let them keep filming. Behind him, someone whispered, He said, owner. The murmurs grew. Every phone lens turned into a mirror, reflecting a system unraveling in real time. The taller officer leaned close again. Sir, you're escalating this. Marcus looked over his shoulder. No, officer, you are. The line landed like a gavel. Even the crowd went still. The dealership manager tried to regain footing. Look, this can't be true, he stammered. Mr. Reed, is it? You're saying you own this location? Marcus turned fully now. Slow, deliberate. I'm saying I own this brand. Every location, every car, including the one you just called the cops on. The younger cop blinked, uncertain. Hold up, what did he just say? The manager's voice cracked. That's impossible. Marcus nodded toward the glass doors. Then maybe ask the name printed on them. They all turned. Through the reflection of flashing lights, 3 silver letters shimmered above the entrance. Reed. The officer's radio crackled. Dispatch confirms. Subject's name matches business owner. Repeat. Confirmed business owner. Is 710. For the first time, the taller cop's face shifted, not remorse yet, just recognition that the ground had moved beneath him. Marcus adjusted his tie. Now, shall we continue your investigation? The question wasn't sarcasm. It was surgical. The manager swallowed hard. Sir, we didn't know. Marcus cut him off. You didn't ask. A voice from the crowd shouted. That's right. Applause broke. Hesitant at first. Then louder phones raised, comments flying across live streams. Someone whispered. He's not even angry. Another replied. He doesn't have to be. The older officer exhaled. Mr. Reed, we made a mistake. Marcus turned slightly, his expression unreadable. Mistakes end when accountability begins. Which one are you choosing today? The question hung in the air like thunder waiting to strike. No one answered. Even the sirens seemed to quiet, as if listening. Inside the showroom, an assistant manager rushed out holding her phone. "Sir," she said to the taller cop, trembling, "your chief's on the line. He wants to speak to Mr. Reed directly." The officer froze. Marcus's jaw tightened just enough to show that he'd been expecting this call all along. He stepped forward, calm as ever. "Good," he said. "Let's make this official." And for the first time that morning, the police weren't in control of the scene, justice was. The taller officer lifted the radio to his ear, but his hand trembled. "Chief, we've got a situation at Reed Automotive." The static answered first, then a low, clipped voice. "Put him on." The crowd leaned in instinctively. Marcus took the radio, pressed the button, and spoke with the kind of calm that could steady a storm. "This is Marcus Reed." A pause. Then the chief's voice, older, gruff, used to being obeyed. "Mr. Reed, I'm told there's been a misunderstanding." Marcus's tone didn't rise. "No, Chief. There's been a pattern." The street went still again. Every phone captured it. A billionaire CEO talking to law enforcement like an equal, not a victim. The chief cleared his throat. "Look, my men were responding to a call." "A false one," Marcus said. "From an employee who assumed theft because of skin, not facts." He turned slightly toward the crowd. "And from officers who acted before asking?" The taller cop's jaw clenched. The younger one looked down at his boots. "Mr. Reed," the chief said carefully, "we can handle this internally." Marcus glanced at the sky, the reflection of red and blue still flashing against the hood of his car. "You will," he replied, "because every second of this is already archived, backed up, and forwarded to my firm's ethics division, which includes your city's legal counsel. It is safe, valiant to oneable." Murmurs rippled through the onlookers. Someone whispered, "He's not bluffing." Another said softly, "This is history." Jordan's voice came through the earpiece again, quiet but firm. "Media's on scene, sir. CNN affiliate just joined the live stream." Marcus nodded once. "Let them film the truth." He handed the radio back to the taller officer. "Your chief's waiting." The man hesitated, then pressed it to his ear. "Yes, sir." "Understood." The color drained from his face. He lowered the radio, eyes fixed on Marcus. "What did he say?" the younger cop asked. The taller one swallowed. He said, "We're to stand down, effective immediately." Is one of the Brechteded self. A hush swept over the street, the kind that follows when arrogance collapses. The crowd exhaled as if they'd been holding their breath for 10 straight minutes. Marcus stepped closer, voice steady as ever. "Good, now you'll stay until he arrives. Accountability should never travel alone." The dealership manager tried to slip away, but Marcus's gaze caught him mid-step. "Where are you going?" I just thought." "You thought wrong." He gestured toward the car. "You made the call that started this. You'll finish it standing right here in front of the people you tried to humiliate." A ripple of applause rose from the crowd. Not loud, not mocking, just a slow, collective affirmation. Justice was shifting from abstract to visible. Marcus looked around, scanning the faces, some apologetic, some still defensive, most just stunned. Then he said, almost to himself, "Power doesn't need permission. It just needs patience." Moments later, a black SUV with tinted windows pulled up. The police chief stepped out, hat under his arm, eyes hard but uncertain. He walked toward Marcus, the weight of consequence already visible in every step. And when he stopped 3 feet away, the air itself seemed to pause, the kind of silence that always comes before the fall. The chief's shoes clicked against the pavement, slow, deliberate, the sound of a man trying to control a narrative that had already escaped him. "Mr. Reed," he began, voice heavy, formal. "I came as soon as I was briefed." Marcus didn't move. "Briefed? That's a polite word for damage control." The crowd hushed. The chief glanced around. Cameras, phones, every angle recording history in real time. He lowered his tone. "Let's talk privately." Marcus shook his head. "We're already in public. That's where this happened. That's where it stays." The chief exhaled, realizing the power had shifted completely. He looked at his officers, two standing still, faces pale with regret, then back at Marcus. "They were following procedure." "No," Marcus said evenly. "They were following prejudice." The words landed hard. Even those filming lowered their phones for a moment, letting the weight of it settle. The chief tried again. "If you'll allow me, we can conduct a full review." I'll ensure disciplinary action. Marcus cut in. This isn't about discipline, it's about truth. You don't fix rot with paperwork. He turned slightly, his reflection gleaming on the hood of the Aston Martin still parked, still spotless, the silent witness to every word. You see that car, Chief? That emblem on the front? This macking of outer batter ravels. The sand bited. The chief nodded. Wary. That's not luxury, that's legacy. My father built engines in a shop smaller than this parking lot. He told me one day I'd build something they couldn't take away. He was wrong. Marcus looked directly at him. They still try. The chief shifted, clearly torn between authority and conscience. Mr. Reed, I can't change what happened. No, Marcus replied, calm but sharp. But you can change what happens next. He stepped closer, the distance between them closing like the final act of a verdict. You're wearing that badge because people trust you to see truth before threat. Today, you failed that trust. So here's what's going to happen. It is then. It is no way Jav, is his ting. And Pastor. The chief's jaw tightened. I'm listening. You'll hand me your badge, Marcus said, his voice steady, deliberate. And you'll do it here in front of every camera that watched your men humiliate the person who built the place they were standing in. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Even the younger cop looked at his boss, eyes wide. Chief, he murmured. The older man didn't speak. The veins in his hand pulsed against the brass edge of his badge. Marcus waited. No anger, no triumph, just stillness. The kind that forces the guilty to see themselves. Finally, the chief removed his hat, then unclipped the badge from his chest. He stared at it for a long second, maybe remembering every time he'd told others they had to answer for their mistakes. Then, with a slow exhale, he placed it on the hood of the car. A single clap broke the silence. Then another. Then the street erupted, not in cheers, but in something deeper. Acknowledgement. Justice wasn't shouted. It was shown. Marcus glanced at the chief. You don't lose respect when you admit you're wrong, he said quietly. You lose it when you pretend you aren't. He turned to his assistant's voice, still in his earpiece. Jordan, confirm receipt of the chief's resignation. Make sure it's filed with the Board of Ethics before noon. Already done, sir. In as happy and brados in braid of the crime and on added. And the raid with followaist. Marcus looked around the scene one last time. The car, the crowd, the cameras, and said, This isn't revenge, it's repair. The chief nodded slowly, almost grateful for the truth he'd been forced to face. And for the first time that morning, the flashing lights began to fade, replaced by sunlight clean, unfiltered, and deserved. The moment the badge touched the hood, the city seemed to exhale. The flashing lights dimmed, and the murmur of the crowd softened into something wordless, a kind of reverence that didn't need clapping. Marcus stood still. For the first time since the confrontation began, the sound of birds and passing cars returned ordinary life, re-entering a place where extraordinary truth had just unfolded. The chief stepped back, hands empty now, shoulders heavier. He looked smaller, not in stature but in certainty. Mr. Reed, he said quietly, I never wanted this to happen. Marcus nodded once. That's the problem. It keeps happening to people who don't want it either. He didn't say it with anger, just gravity, the kind that couldn't be argued with. Jordan's voice came softly through the earpiece. Sir, all media outlets confirm coverage. Local and national networks are running the story live. Would you like to release a statement? Marcus's answer was immediate. No. The footage says enough. He turned to the two younger officers still standing nearby. You can stay, he said evenly, but only if you're here to learn, not defend. One of them nodded slowly, eyes lowered. The other swallowed hard, guilt drawing lines across his face. I didn't know who you were, he murmured. Marcus met his gaze. That's not the point. You shouldn't have to. A woman from the crowd stepped forward, the one who'd first spoken up. Her voice shook, but her words didn't. I filmed the whole thing. If you ever need it. Marcus interrupted gently. Keep it. Share it. The world learns faster when the truth doesn't belong to one person. He looked around, scanning the faces again, workers, bystanders, kids in hoodies, professionals in suits, all of them, witnesses to a lesson written in real time. Don't mistake calm for weakness, he said quietly, almost like a benediction. Sometimes silence is the loudest correction. The crowd broke into murmurs again. A teenager near the front whispered, That line's gonna be everywhere. His friend replied, It should be. The chief took one last look at his badge, resting on the Aston's hood, then turned to leave. Marcus watched him go, not with satisfaction, but reflection. Because every victory like this carried its own sadness, proof that progress still needed confrontation to be seen. He ran a hand along the car's fender, feeling the cool metal under his fingertips. For a second, he saw his father's garage, the smell of oil and steel, the sound of rain against tin. That's where it had started. Back when justice wasn't a word, just a wish whispered over engine smoke. "Sir," Jordan's voice returned, "would you like me to notify the board about the dealership staff involved?" Marcus took a slow breath. "No, I'll handle that personally. Mercy is a better teacher when it's witnessed." He looked up at the sky, sunlight breaking clean through the clouds. Then he turned back to the crowd, his voice carrying just enough for everyone to hear. "I don't need them punished," he said. "I need them changed." A long pause followed, the kind that lingers after truth has been spoken and doesn't ask for applause. Then Marcus stepped into the car, the door closing with a quiet, definitive click. As the engine started, the screens of 100 phones caught the reflection of one line burned into every mind there. Power doesn't shout, it corrects. And with that, Marcus Reed drove away, not escaping the moment but completing it. By the next morning, the world had seen it. The video, shaky, raw, undeniable, had spread across every major platform before sunrise. Number Marcus Reed trended on X. He made the police chief hand over his badge, became a headline, a meme, a mirror. But Marcus didn't post. He didn't comment. He didn't even open the news. He was already back at his office, top floor, glass walls overlooking the same city that had once refused him loans, deals, and credibility. The irony wasn't lost on him. Jordan entered with a tablet in hand. "Morning brief, sir." He glanced up. "How bad?" "Depends on your definition," she replied. 58 million views, 4 network requests, 3 legal inquiries, and 1 invitation from the governor. As how passed on the right one to next. You can tellable. Marcus leaned back in his chair. "All that for 10 minutes of truth," Jordan nodded. 10 minutes that made people pick sides. She swiped the screen, headlines scrolled by in waves. CEO confronts racism with calm precision. Police chief resigns after viral incident. Reed, the face of silent power. Marcus exhaled, eyes steady on the city below. "They'll talk about it like it's justice," he said quietly. "But justice isn't a clip, it's a culture." Jordan tilted her head. "Then maybe this is the start of one." He smiled faintly, not optimism, just awareness. "Maybe." Her phone buzzed. She glanced down, frowned. "Sir, you're trending again. Someone leaked your old interview from 2015, the one where you said, 'Silence isn't weakness, it's strategy.'" Marcus gave a small laugh. "Guess they finally understood it." Across the city, reactions poured in. A news anchor replayed the footage in slow motion, narrating every second like it was a courtroom exhibit. On TikTok, teenagers reenacted the scene with captions like, "This is how you handle disrespect." Comment sections split between awe and cynicism. "He's a hero." "It's staged." Imagine needing to own the building to get respect. In a quiet suburb, a young black boy watched the clip with his mother. He asked softly, "Mom, why did they think he stole it?" "Yes. He was level bride with I Amley. Aber." She hesitated before answering. "Because sometimes the world forgets who built what." Meanwhile, in the police department, the chief sat in a conference room, surrounded by reporters. His statement was short. "I resigned because leadership without accountability is theater." The cameras caught it. The story deepened. Back at Reed Automotive, Marcus met with his communications team. A woman in a blazer spoke first. "We can use this moment, brand positioning, social messaging." He raised a hand. "Stop." The room froze. "This isn't a campaign," he said. "It's a consequence." The room fell silent. Marcus stood, walked to the window. The morning light caught the reflection of his face, calm, firm, unyielding. "They saw what happened to me," he said. "But the story isn't about me. It's about the next man who shouldn't need a headline to be treated with dignity." Jordan met his eyes in the glass. "Then what do we do next?" Marcus turned, voice low, deliberate. "We build something that doesn't go viral, it goes permanent." Outside, a helicopter circled the skyline for live footage. Inside, Marcus Reed began writing the next chapter, not for applause, but for architecture. because what he was constructing now wasn't a business move. It was the blueprint for justice that didn't need a camera to exist. 3 days later, the noise began to fade, but Marcus's work did not. While the internet argued, he was in a boardroom filled with architects, lawyers, and community leaders. On the screen behind him glowed 3 words in white on black: the Reed Initiative. "This isn't charity," Marcus said, voice steady. "It's infrastructure." He pointed to the slide police accountability workshops, youth mentorships, legal defense funding for wrongfully profiled citizens. "Every city that sells our cars will host one. If they want our brand, they'll share our values." A pause. Then Jordan added, "And every incident like yours becomes a training case for both officers and civilians." "These rah-forgotten ways," Marcus nodded. "We won't erase what happened. We'll repurpose it." Outside the boardroom, journalists still camped near the lobby, waiting for a statement he had no intention of giving. He didn't need to. Real power doesn't announce itself, it operationalizes. Later that evening, Marcus stood alone on the rooftop of his headquarters. The skyline pulsed with light, some from the city, some from his billboards already updated with a new slogan. "Reed Automotive, built by discipline, driven by dignity." The wind tugged at his jacket. Below, traffic moved like a current, chaotic but constant. Each car a reminder of motion, of progress that doesn't wait for permission. Jordan joined him quietly. "They're calling you the CEO who made silence viral." He smiled faintly. Then they missed the point. She tilted her head. "Which is?" Marcus looked out toward the horizon. "That silence was never the goal. It was the test to see who'd listen before I had to speak." A moment passed, heavy and clean. Then he turned away from the skyline and said, "Now let's get back to building." Because for Marcus Reed, justice wasn't a moment in front of cameras. It was a system under construction. 2 weeks later, the headlines had cooled, but the movement had not. The Reed Initiative spread faster than any ad campaign ever could, not through marketing, but through momentum. Police academies requested the training modules. Community centers asked for funding. Universities invited Marcus to speak, but he always declined. "I'm not a speaker," he told Jordan one night in his office. "I'm an engineer. I don't raise awareness, I raise foundations." She smiled. "You've become a symbol whether you want it or not." Marcus looked at her, expression steady. Symbols fade. Systems don't. On his desk sat a sealed envelope, the official apology from the mayor's office, complete with the city seal embossed in gold. He hadn't opened it. Forgiveness didn't need stationery. Instead, his focus was on the new site under construction just outside Atlanta, a training campus blending business, tech, and ethics education. The first building was already framed. The sign at the gate read, "The Reed Center for Equitable Leadership." Workers passed by, nodding as he walked the lot in plain clothes, unnoticed by most. He preferred it that way. The anonymity reminded him of the day everything began, when silence had been mistaken for surrender. He stopped by a column of steel beams and rested his hand on it. "This," he murmured, "is how you answer ignorance, not with rage, but with permanence." This stalled. Jordan, standing nearby, caught his words. "People will drive past this place and never know why it exists." Marcus smiled faintly. "That's the beauty of it. Justice doesn't need to trend. It just needs to stand." And as the evening sun dipped behind the half-built structure, the silhouette of progress rose quiet, immovable, and unmistakably his. 3 months later, Marcus Reed returned to the same showroom where everything had started. No cameras this time, no flashing lights. Just morning sunlight spilling across the polished floor, catching the same silver Aston Martin that had once been surrounded by police tape and doubt. The staff shifted nervously when he walked in, a quiet wave of recognition spreading across the room. The new manager, a young black woman named Ariel Thompson, stepped forward. "Mr. Reed," she said, steady but reverent. "We weren't told you were coming." Marcus smiled. "Good. I like it that way." She led him through the lobby. The same walls, same smell of leather and new engines, but the energy was different. No longer suspicion, just attention. Respect not from fear, but from awareness. Behind the front desk, a framed document hung in the corner, the Reed Code of Conduct. Ariel noticed his gaze. "We updated every location," she said. "Profiling equals termination. No warning. No second chance." Marcus nodded. "Good. Policies protect what people forget. A young salesman approached early 20s, nervous, holding a key fob. "Sir, would you like to see the new model?" he asked carefully. Marcus studied him. "What's your name?" "Evan, sir." Marcus smiled. "Then show me, Evan. Not the car, show me how you see people." The question threw him for a second, but he straightened. "I see people as potential, sir, not profiles." Marcus chuckled quietly. "Keep that. It'll take you further than this car ever will." They stopped by the silver Aston, the same one from that morning months ago. Marcus placed his hand on the hood, still smooth, still cold, but now a symbol reclaimed. Ariel watched him, unsure whether to speak. "You know," Marcus said, his reflection split across the metal, "I almost sold this entire chain the day it happened." Her eyes widened. "Why didn't you?" "Because walking away would have been too easy. Changing it was harder, so I stayed." The words carried through the room, steady as the hum of distant engines. Every employee paused, listening without meaning to. Jordan entered quietly, tablet in hand. "The READ initiative just passed its national certification," she said. 50 states, approved for implementation." Marcus smiled faintly. "Good. Maybe now, fewer people will need a headline to find their worth." He looked around the showroom. The same walls that once echoed with doubt now felt like they were holding something sacred. Not perfection, just progress. Ariel turned to him. "Sir, may I ask, how did you stay so calm that day?" Marcus looked at her, the kind of look that carries decades of restraint and realization. "Because I learned a long time ago," he said slowly. "Anger makes you loud, but dignity makes you heard." The room went silent. Outside, a family entered, a mother, a father, a young boy pointing excitedly at the cars. Evan greeted them with a smile. No hesitation, no judgment. Marcus watched the moment, then looked back at Ariel. "That's the real return on investment," he said, "when decency becomes instinct." As he turned to leave, the morning sun hit the hood of the Aston just right, gleaming, unapologetic, alive. And for the first time since that day, Marcus Reed walked out of the showroom, not as the man accused, not even as the man vindicated, but as the man who'd built a world where neither had to exist again. That afternoon, Marcus met Ariel in his office, sunlight cutting clean through the glass, framing them both like the closing scene of a lesson learned. On the desk lay a single envelope stamped with the Reed Automotive seal. He slid it across to her. "What's this?" she asked. "Your promotion," he said simply. "You're taking over this division." Ariel froze. "Sir, I'm not sure I'm ready." Marcus smiled. "Neither was I, the day they told me I didn't belong here. Turns out that was my first day of leadership." She blinked back tears, then stood taller. "I'll honor it, sir." "I know you will," Marcus said, rising. "Because you've lived what the policy means, not just memorized it." Jordan entered quietly, tablet in hand. "Press requests are stacking up again. They all want a quote." Marcus shook his head. "Give them this. Leadership isn't what happens in the spotlight, it's what you fix after it turns off." He looked at Ariel once more. "This place doesn't need me hovering over it. It needs you proving it works." Ariel nodded. "What will you do next?" Marcus glanced toward the skyline beyond the glass. "Build something quieter, but stronger." As she left the room, the sunlight shifted, landing on the empty chair he'd once filled with silence that spoke louder than power. Marcus Reed had just done what few ever could. He turned survival into succession. Night settled over the city like a calm verdict. From the rooftop of the Reed headquarters, Marcus watched the skyline pulse, thousands of windows flickering like reminders that change never sleeps. Below him, the new training center's lights glowed steady. The first cohort already inside, young officers, business interns, community leaders. The future in motion. Jordan joined him, a coffee in hand. "You ever think about how fast everything shifted?" Marcus smiled faintly. "It didn't shift. It revealed." The world didn't suddenly change, it just finally looked in the mirror. He took a slow breath, the air crisp, clean. "The goal was never revenge," he said. "It was recognition. We have the problems." They stood in silence for a while, the kind that doesn't need filling. Far below, traffic whispered, billboards flashed, and a small digital screen on a passing bus displayed the new slogan, "Reed Automotive, built by discipline, driven by dignity." Jordan looked at it, then at him. "That line's going to outlive us." Marcus chuckled softly. Good, it means we did something right. He turned toward the city one last time, eyes reflecting the light he had once fought to stand under. Then, almost to himself, he whispered, "Power doesn't shout, it corrects. It, it is not a god." And as the wind carried his words into the sleeping streets, Marcus Reed walked back inside, not as a headline, not as a hero, but as a builder of the world he wished had existed the day they told him he didn't belong.